I'd like to call this meeting of the Montgomery County School Board to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, board members and members of the audience. Good evening to you as well. Thank you for your attendance this evening. First item on our agenda is an adoption of the agenda. I need a motion to adopt.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? We now have an agenda. The next item on the agenda is public address, and this is where the board sets aside 30 minutes with a maximum of 3 minutes per citizen to address this board on items of educational interest. And at this time, we have one person who has signed up, and that person is Rupert Cox. If you would step. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. My apologies. Thank you for pointing that out. The first person on the list, is Betsy Osborne. Step forward and please state your name and address.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Betsy Osborne, and I live at 243 Lester Place in Christiansburg. I am an 8th grade teacher at Christiansburg Middle School. For the last 3 years, I have taught civics on an A-B schedule, alternating schedule. I've taught on a blocking semester with teaming, and I'm currently teaching on a blocking semester with departments. Having taught several facets of the blocking schedule, I feel qualified to speak to the importance of keeping the aspect of middle school teams alive. Middle schoolers are what we in the trade refer to as unique. While craving the need for independence, these students want the nurture of a teacher for support, whether they'll admit it or not. Middle school students need to feel supported by at least one adult in their school. Teaming offers a group of teachers who, while working independently, operate on a whole to support students in their time of need. Allowing teachers to remain teams helps meet the needs of students by not only allocating time to discuss concerns, but by giving teachers a chance to collaborate curriculum to reinforce content. I also want to speak on behalf of the proposed cuts of an assistant principal position at our middle schools. While the cuts could bring in a much needed revenue, the effects of the loss of the position could have a heavy impact on the daily operations of our schools. Our assistant principals strive to be all things to all people. By removing a position from the school at the size of CMS, we not only risk the effectiveness of that position, but we risk the safety of our schools, which we know is imperative at this current time. There's no doubt that their workload would significantly increase, which would decrease their attentiveness to other details. The decision before you all is great. I'm thankful I'm not the one making them, but I encourage you all to do something outside the regular realms of your position. Due to the weight of these cuts could have, I encourage you all to come spend a day in our school before making your verdict. It's easy to make a decision based upon what people like myself have to say. Don't rely solely on our voices and what we think. I welcome you to spend a day in my classroom to help make the best educated decision that you can. This way, when it comes to it, you see more than the voices being proposed. American philosopher John Dewey once said, "Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself." As we know, schools are not businesses which produce products. We are a culture which produces citizens. We produce our future. Again, thank you for your time and consideration on these above subjects.
Thank you. The next person signed up is Rupert Cox.
Hello, how are you doing tonight? I came to do a public address to speak to you guys, to give you some more information about what it was like to be a teacher in middle school and some numbers for you guys to understand, because you are being presented with a tremendous amount of numbers. The world works on numbers, and as a math teacher I realize that that is something that's very important for people to understand. Some of the numbers I have are through some polling that I have done with many teachers as possible, you guys are looking at potential changes to the schedules that will impact the amount of time that a teacher has available for planning. Well, one of these things that I looked at was we are required as teachers to assess the students. This is seen as a very important thing in the documents for the Virginia Department of Education for guidelines for best teaching practices. They have a whole section given to what is a teacher supposed to do as planning. There are 6 key stages. One of those stages is assessment. If a teacher was to give a quiz, they have to grade every one of those quizzes. Well, each quiz, if you're taking higher level thinking questions, which are required for SOL testing, and they now have multiple response, multiple choice is no longer an option, we need to be testing our students in the same kind of manner they'll be tested on the SOL test. To carefully grade these quizzes, on average, it takes about 3 minutes per quiz. Well, right at 3 minutes per quiz at about 90 students, which we have now, that would be a total of 270 minutes or 4.5 hours. If we move to 150 students per teacher, that would jump from 4.5 hours or 270 minutes to 900 minutes and about 15 hours to grade 1 quiz. We are only given, right now under our current model, 7 hours of planning per week. If we reduce that to about 3.5 hours of planning per week, a teacher is going to have to double the amount of time they spend in non-contractual hours to maintain this assessment policy that we have set forth. We also have Portal, which demands that we keep our grades up to date as soon as possible. English and social studies teachers are given the task of having the students learn how to write. They have to give them essays. They have to grade these essays. After polling as many teachers as I could, it takes about 20 minutes for a teacher to grade an essay. They have to read and critique that student's writing. If a teacher is to grade an essay at about 20 minutes, 90 students per 90 essays that they have to grade, that would be at 1,800 minutes or about 30 hours of time spent grading. Again, this is time that falls on the teacher that usually is non-contractual hours at home grading. As you move forward in your decision to do these changes, it's a tough decision. I do not envy you. I do not wish I had to make that decision. It's a very tough decision. But please keep in mind that teachers in Montgomery County work a tremendous amount just to make sure we can keep up what's going on. And as we move towards this model, I just wanted to say I saw a news report from WDBJ7. Roanoke County Schools is having to offer teachers $10,000 just to sign up. They can't get enough math teachers in Roanoke County Schools because they do not have enough planning and they're not paid well enough. I don't wish we moved to that model. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes all who have signed up this evening on the list. I will open it up now to the audience, and if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address this board of items of educational interest, please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing no one, public address is now closed. Next item on the agenda is consent items. Board members, is there anything you would like to pull from consent and discuss? Hearing none, items are approved on consent. Next item on the agenda is the personnel reports. Need a motion to approve the personnel report. Ms. Franklin?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the personnel report? All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. So let's do this by hands here since we got some. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Oh, well, I'm redoing the vote since we got. All right. All those opposed? We got 2 opposed. Motion still carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is payment of the bills. Need a motion to pay the bills.
Move we pay the bills.
Second.
Any discussion on the bills? All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's reports, recommendations, and announcements. Ms. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. The first 3 items in my agenda this evening are grant applications, and all 3 of these grants are applications to the Safe Routes to School Grant Program, which is a federal program managed in Virginia by the Virginia Department of Transportation. The program facilitates projects designed to make walking and biking a safer and more appealing option for students and their families. The first of the three grants is for Auburn Elementary School and Auburn Middle School for up to $500,000 to construct sidewalks, pathways, and crosswalks that will tie existing residential community trails into the Auburn campus trail system. Recommend approval of this grant application.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Sounds good.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Grant's approved.
The second grant is also for $500,000 for projects that will provide better traffic management for pedestrians, vehicles, and school buses on and around the Bellevue school grounds. Recommend approval of the grant application.
So moved.
Any discussion on the grant?
I have a question about the pedestrian crosswalk across 114. You know, it just seems a little odd for having.
I'm going to ask Laura if she would come
Okay.
and respond to that. She works very closely with the grant application. Thank you, Laura.
I had a feeling you might ask that question, and why wouldn't you? All that I can tell you is that these projects were planned with the localities to make walking safer than it currently is. We're not saying it's magically perfectly safe, but doing the projects that are included in these proposals will make it a safer option if someone were to cross that road than it currently is, whether that be for a student or for an adult at some other time during the day. Crossing that road will be safer with the improvements they're proposing to make than it would be without them.
Thank you.
And what improvements are they projecting?
Ms. Albritton, will you pull the mic to you?
Oh, sorry.
There's a bulleted list of the things that they're going to do in the grant application. It calls for restriping the school parking lot, for constructing an ADA accessible entrance to the school's southwest quadrant, constructing new sidewalks, bike racks, adding crosswalks, and reconstructing existing sidewalks to meet ADA standards, installing a pedestrian crosswalk, pedestrian refuge area, and a rapid beacon warning system across Route 114, and installing a left turn lane at the school's main entrance. Those are the key items that were detailed in the grant application.
Any other questions, board members? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm gonna say aye. Just have some questions about that crosswalk.
The third grant this evening is for the town of Christiansburg, also $500,000 for sidewalks, pathways, and crosswalks that will provide connection between existing town infrastructure, adjacent residential areas, and both school sites CES and CPS. Recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion on this grant? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is the FY 13-14 initial budget request to the Board of Supervisors. You've seen the budget before. There are no changes since you adopted it on January 22nd for public hearing on January 29th. The budget that you're being asked to approve this afternoon reflects the additional funds of $4,209,134 required to balance the expenditure budget. You also have before you the school nutrition budget for 2013-2014, and Walt, I'm not sure, is the proposed 10% increase in lunch prices in here?
Sure.
It's created by a formula that comes from the school nutrition program, and it would require an increase in lunch prices of 10 cents during the 13-14 fiscal year. I'm recommending that the board approve the budget as presented for presentation to the Board of Supervisors. They've requested it by the 8th of February for formal presentation to the Board of Supervisors at their meeting on February 11th. I'm happy to answer any questions and/or Mr. Shannon and Ms. Miano are in the audience.
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion on the budget as presented by the superintendent. A 2% salary increase for all employees, does that include the state's part of that number?
Yes, it does, the $1.6 million. The only anticipated change that I see in this is that we are continuing to work with our health insurance provider, and I do not have a firm pricing yet because we've not fully vetted it against the new federal requirements, and we've not reconvened the insurance committee yet. And so at this time, we're sticking with our initial number, although we expect that it will go down from that number,
The health insurance number? will
the
go
health
down.
insurance number.
But of the 1.6, state is contributing how much?
$490,000, which covers selected teacher positions that are SOQ funded.
And the only way we get that is we have to give everybody, we have to match that, correct?
We have to match it. It's a 60-40, but the only way that that will happen is if the General Assembly approves the governor's education bill and funds it at the 2% level, which he's proposed. And then it's the standard match, 60-40 between the county and the state funds.
So is it safe to say that this is a somewhat of an unfunded mandate on raises?
Well, if you don't match it, you don't get the $490,000. So you could call it an unfunded mandate, because in order to get your $490,000, you have to kick in a significant 40% to match it.
So
Partially funded mandate.
Partially funded.
I was going to say twisted arm funded mandate.
And it does not cover any, at the current time, it does not cover any support employee, any administrative employee, any employee other than the specified list of SOQ-funded teacher positions. There's conversation that it may be expanded, but that has not been
Right.
determined at this point.
I've read that may be extended. I guess my point was is that some of what you see here is things that are being forced upon us by the state in how they want us to operate our division. Whether it's called a partially funded or unfunded mandate, it's definitely a significant amount of money that the county is going to put forth to match what we should do, the right thing we should do as a division, and also to receive the funds from the state. I know that there was some people that represent us in the delegation that don't understand what unfunded mandates are. And then the VRS is another one that we are having to pick up the cost of.
We have to, over a period of time, we have to transfer the 5% employee portion of the VRS. We did 1% last year. It's not a revenue neutral process. It cost us about $110,000 additional expenditures for every 1% that we transfer. So the $500,000+ you see there is the cost to the division above the straight transfer of funds.
And that is mandated.
It is mandated over a period of time, that's correct.
Mandated unfunded is just beyond me.
Right, and that's
We actually submitted to the state a rather long list of unfunded mandates last year during the legislative session at the request of the state and the
Right.
Department of Education. It was quite a lengthy laundry list, and that list is still on file and can be provided if anyone would like to see it.
I would like to see it.
Yeah, and the VRS goes back to the way they did not fund that program but in the past, just doing a shell game. And I said it then, sooner or later we're going to have to pay for this. And here we are having to pay for this across the state because folks did not do the right thing to start off with, and that was fund public education the way it should be funded. And as far as the 2% raise, it's just an absolute shame that we have a governor who does not believe that the folks who support public education deserve a 2% raise along with our SOQ positions. That's just,
I agree with you.
that's just, I can't even tell you what I think about that. I could, but I won't.
And then, do we have any idea about sequestration?
March,
March,
1st of March, it's becoming a very hot topic of discussion.
so we'll know something. It's additional money.
And that would have
And hopefully they won't kick the can down the road a little further, so we're
about a
waiting.
$400,000
Yeah.
impact to our school system.
Yeah, it's incredible. I just think, well, you all know what I think. I don't have to say anymore.
Any further discussion on the budget as presented?
I need to ask a question about the school nutrition program. I know that's a self-supporting program. Have we seen the revenues decline this year compared to prior years?
I'd have to ask Mr. Shannon if he can speak to that. I
Because
don't
I'm hearing
know.
a lot from parents and students about the school nutrition program. So I'm just curious where that stands.
We provide it in your second meeting of the month, a financial update, and you'll see the revenue received to date and expenditures to date. The revenue for the school nutrition always trails expenditures because of the federal reimbursements. You file them and they may come in on the same month or maybe a month or two later. So they always carry, but we track the revenue and it looks like they're still on track compared to last year. Comparing that with the meal raise. The proposed increase in meal prices in this budget is because because we receive free and reduced lunch subsidies from the federal government. They require a formula calculation now so that your meal prices have to be within a certain range percentage of the federal reimbursement that you receive. And so that forces then to increase your meal prices. They do not want the federal free and reduced lunch to subsidize the full program. And if those divisions that have a large free and reduced lunch program, you can essentially subsidize your prices by the amount that you receive in federal reimbursements. So the amount we have to charge for the meals now is based on a formula and has to be submitted to DOE for approval every year.
I know with some of the choices that are being offered now, there were changes. Are we seeing, and this goes to some of what Mrs. Bond has said throughout the years, we can offer them healthy choices, but if they're not going to eat them, then we just have children who aren't eating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we can at a later meeting, if it's a board desire, have Michael Marcinelli, our school nutrition supervisor, come back and give you an update on what's happening with both nutrition guidelines and the management of the program and what he's seeing with the students. It is changing. If you read the literature, it is changing to include, requirements for vending machines in schools. It's all changing. But we've given you an update, probably been about 2 years ago, I think we did the last, and we can schedule that and give you another update.
I know several years ago, they also bought in samples of the offerings and gave the nutritional information because a lot of folks don't understand. They see pizza, but they don't understand all the things, the nutrition that is built into that pizza. So that would be nice for the.
Yeah, we'll bring you apples with the nutrition value of them.
So I have one other question that I remember reading about an article on this, is about the waste. Do we track the waste? I mean, it's one thing to offer healthy choices and put it out there.
Well, the
Some people get it.
requirement is by the federal government, you must offer it, and the students have to take it. They're not required to eat it.
I understand that.
That's what I was saying.
But throwing it down
Right.
in the trash can doesn't help us either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's throwing money in the trash can.
We separate the trash and we recycle it. It goes off to be compost if it's food products.
But we really don't have any
We
way
don't
of
measure it or
tracking.
track it or anything. We don't have the staff to do that. Otherwise, somebody would have to stand at the trash cans to kind of measure what's going in there. We do kind of keep an eye on it, for students, because some things that go in there, and our school nutrition staff is pretty good at monitoring what students like and they don't like. And they do have a program where they'll run some test food and even get feedback from students on them.
Do we pay for composting? And do we pay by the pound for composting?
It costs us a little bit, but we offset it by what we don't have to pay for the tipping in the of our dumpsters.
So there is a way to monitor that.
Yeah. But it's working out kind of even now. Instead of putting it in the dumpster and paying for the tipping fees, we now can handle the composting, and it works out.
Well, the thing that blew my mind was it wasn't even the food. It was things like apples and bananas and oranges and things like that that were put on trays that there were no way we could salvage. Which, you know, I've brought this up many times, and I know it's a government. And each conference that I go to, I always go to the nutritional ones because I'm a true believer. School lunch is not what's making students fat or chunky or heavy. I'm a believer in it. I've seen it. I've had 3 kids go through, got 1 in middle school. And and the apple, those things were phenomenally delicious, but you couldn't get my 13-year-old to eat one if I paid her to eat it. You know, I mean, it's just a difference in taste with children. So that's the thing that bothers me is the things like that. I hate that there's no way we could save an unopened banana, you know? And when I have lunch aid workers tell me, we've probably seen 20 go in the
That's-
trash today.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's just,
Yeah, that's your
you
food
know,
industry
it's
standard on it.
sickening.
Once served, you can't rework it.
Well, it's a difficult situation, but I think if the school system doesn't offer healthy food, and food that is nutritious, I don't think it's a good sign either. So I think we have to at least offer healthy food to our kids.
Any other comments, questions about the budget? Hearing none, I'm going to ask, since this is a budget, and I'm going to ask for roll call on this, please. Sure.
Thank you.
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Albritton?
Aye.
Ms. Vaughn?
yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Absolutely needed, yes.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes. Thank you, board members.
Our next item this evening is the Montgomery County Public Schools Middle School Scheduling Study. As you will recall, there were a number of budget studies approved and undertaken by staff this year with the idea that they may help us find ways to do cost containment during the 13-14 school year if that were necessary. Doing this secondary scheduling study has shown that there is potential to decrease staffing costs and at the same time potentially make the school better for students and create opportunities that may positively impact student achievement. The presentation this evening will provide you with information not only about Montgomery County Public Schools, but about other school divisions and how they schedule students. The presenters for tonight are Nelson Simpkins, Judy Borelski, and Carol Jennings. And we expect the presentation will take about 30 minutes. I'd ask board members if you would please hold your questions till the end. You have a hard copy of the presentation before you, and you may make notations of your questions. We'll come back and spend as much time as you would like answering those questions. We are pursuing this ahead of actually making any decisions on budget reductions because the board requested that we provide additional information so that you could consider it in the context of potential budget reductions as well as on its own merits as a potential for doing business in a different way in Montgomery County schools. So with that, Nelson, floor is yours.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience. It's indeed our pleasure tonight to present information regarding the middle school scheduling study. Let me start by apologizing. I think I've been reminded a couple of times that apparently when we uploaded board docs, one of our 4 data charts that compares SOL scores to surrounding counties only partially uploaded. So I'm sure we'll be able to upload that either later tonight or tomorrow, and hopefully you'll be able to get information concerning all 4 of the charts. I'm very pleased that the board members do have that information in front of you. Since 2008, our division has experienced declining revenues that have challenged us to examine how we may continue providing strong instructional programs with less. Your approval of the 2012-13 budget directed us to examine various elements of our system operations to determine if we might be able to provide various services in a more efficient manner. Our presentation is the result of one of the efficiency studies you requested. During our January budget work session, you were provided a detailed analysis of the secondary school scheduling study. This information was the result of a thorough examination of literally every individual teacher schedule, including PTRs, in the scheduling structure in each of our schools. The work has involved school-based and division leaders and required well over 200 hours. Simply stated, the goal was to determine if we could provide our instructional programming in a more effective and efficient manner while meeting state and division standards. Our middle school work has centered on how we can effectively use our instructional resources while maintaining the essential attributes and characteristics so vital in a high-performing school of young adolescents. This presentation will examine essential attributes and characteristics of successful middle schools and their relevance to determining a school's master teaching schedule. Scheduling models will be reviewed, as well as comparative data relative to schedules, the school day, achievement, and percentage of time students are in core subjects. This chart highlights our research of surrounding school divisions. The 7 non-highlighted divisions shown in white, including the counties of Allegheny, Botetourt, Montgomery, Pulaski, Roanoke, and the cities of Roanoke and Salem, all utilize a 6th through 8 structure. The counties of Floyd and Giles, highlighted in yellow, employ a K-7 structure, and Radford City utilizes a grade 7-8 configuration.
Which I like.
The examination of scheduling models reveals that 7 of the 10 divisions, that includes Montgomery, utilize some form of hybrid scheduling, which includes extended learning periods, which are blocks of their daily instructional time. Examples include Roanoke County, they have 4 95-minute hybrid blocks. Botetourt County, they have 5 extended periods for 6th grade and 7 periods for their 7th and 8th grade. Salem City has 6 extended periods in a tutorial time. Floyd County, 3 90-minute instructional periods for their 6th and 7th grade. Their 8th grade is at the high school. Only Giles County and Roanoke City indicated they utilized a 7-period fixed time schedule. Another element of our study will examine comparative student achievement data resulting from each division's use of these identified structures and scheduling models. This study, released in December by the VEA Governmental Relations Division, illustrates K-12 teacher planning time shown in minutes per week. The comparative chart of surrounding school divisions shows that average planning time for most divisions is approximately 4.2 hours per week, with a couple of the divisions providing less minutes and one division providing additional minutes. The red line inserted above Montgomery County K-12 teachers planning time is provided to you by our work, not VEA, to illustrate the additional planning time provided to middle school core subject teachers within our division. It clearly illustrates that most Montgomery County K-12 teachers receive approximately 250 minutes or 4.2 hours per week of planning time versus the 450 minutes or the 7.5 hours afforded to middle school core teachers. 5 of our comparative divisions provided no team planning time. 3 divisions provided limited time, usually within the contractual day, some 30 minutes weekly, or one once monthly. And Salem City was the only division providing team planning similar to our division. The study also noted that currently 53 middle school, this is Montgomery County Middle School, non-core teachers instruct students 6 instructional periods or the equivalent and have only 1 planning period each day.
Could you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
The study also noted that currently 53 middle school non-core teachers, this would be like HPE teachers, fine arts teachers, CTE teachers, they already instruct students 6 instructional periods, or the equivalent would be 3 or 4 blocks, and have only 1 planning period each day. There are currently 92 core subject area teachers instructing students 5 periods each day with individual planning periods as well as team planning periods during the instructional day.
Don't they give that to us?
I'm sorry, Nelson, could you give me the non-core number again?
Yeah, I don't.
53.
53?
Non-core.
It would be helpful to have a copy of that.
Yeah.
Get it.
I wish we
We'll
had that
provide
data.
you with the notes from all of his talking
Yeah,
points.
that would be helpful, because I was trying to write it down.
But the numbers are 53 non-core middle school teachers who currently teach 6 periods a day, and 92 core teachers in middle school who teach 5 periods, as well as have a team planning and a regular planning during the instructional day.
Here you see, excuse me, the most recent SOL data for Montgomery County and 9 surrounding school divisions as reported on the Virginia Department of Education report cards. This,
This is the page that we don't have.
No, you've got it.
You got it.
We have this.
The SOL chart on the left top portion of the slide did not upload something.
That's all. Thank you.
You have it all.
this analysis reflects student performance for a 1-year snapshot only. While we looked at all 11 SOLs administered at the middle school level, we are showing you only 4 subjects that are representative of the 3 grade levels, the subjects tested, as well as Montgomery County's comparative performance. Montgomery County is highlighted in yellow, the state is highlighted in bright blue, and the benchmark, whether federal or state, is highlighted in green. As Mr. Simpkins just presented, the surrounding counties have varying middle school instructional schedules. However, when we look at SOL pass rates comparatively with the other 9 school divisions, Montgomery County consistently performs 4th or below. Additionally, Roanoke County's and Botetourt County's pass rates are consistently higher than Montgomery County's pass rates. Both school divisions have middle schools with grades 6 through 8 configurations and utilize a hybrid schedule that allows flexibility in how they schedule classes. On this slide, we are comparing the instructional day within Montgomery County schools. Here you see that at the elementary level, students receive 6 hours a day of instruction. Of those 6 hours, 5 hours, or 83%, are spent in the 4 core subjects. Their breakdown usually reflects 1 hour in math, up to 1 hour each in history and science, and 2 hours, sometimes up to 2.5 hours, in language arts. Middle school students receive 6.1 hours of instruction each day. This is broken into 7 periods, of which 4 are core classes. The total amount of time in these 4 classes is approximately only 3.5 hours, or 57% of their day. Some students thrive and succeed with this amount of instructional time in English and math. However, many students may need more instructional time. A flexible middle school scheduling model could allow our students in our middle schools to differentiate and enrich, particularly in English and math. This additional time may afford us more time to work with individual students who are 1 to 2 years behind academically. This is particularly important so students can enter the 9th grade ready for the rigors of high school and not be behind before they even begin. In other words, we want our middle school students prepared for the high school curriculum so they can be on-time graduates. Here you see longitudinal SOL data for Montgomery County school students who are currently in 10th grade. We purposely chose the 10th grade class because this was the last class who had the old 2001 math standards in grades 4 through 8. This graph tracks students' SOL scores from 4th grade through 8th grade in reading, math, history, and science. In reading, the scores remain relatively stable from 4th through 8th grade, with a low of an 86% pass rate in grade 6 and a high of a 90% pass rate in grade 8. Math, however, decreases from a pass rate of 89% in grade 5 to 73% in grade 6. In grades 7 and 8, math pass rates increase, but not to the level that they were in grade 5. This is particularly critical as math skills build upon one another from year to year.
This, we believe, Keys to Educating Young Adolescents, is the Association for Middle Level Education's guiding document that outlines the 4 essential attributes and 16 characteristics of successful middle schools. Last week, I was part of a meeting in which each middle school principal with a lead teacher met with Mr. Simpkins to discuss the middle school schedules. During the meeting, the representatives of each school were asked to rate the relevance of each characteristic in the development of an effective schedule and to identify some actions that a school might take to implement the relevant characteristics. I'll share with you how they thought some of the characteristics could be reflected in an effective school schedule. Under the category of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, they identified 2 characteristics that a middle school schedule could support. 1, students and teachers are engaged in active, purposeful learning. And 2, curriculum is challenging, exploratory, integrative, and relevant. They thought that an effective school schedule provides class time to engage students in in-depth experiences, planning time for teachers to create meaningful activities, a limited number of course preps for teachers, and a variety of opportunities for student choice in course electives, clubs, and intramural activities. These 4 responses remained high priorities in their discussions of the next 2 categories. As I review these categories, I'll share only the new ideas that emerged. Under the category of leadership and organization, they thought that an effective middle school schedule could provide an organizational structure that fostered purposeful learning and meaningful relationships. By providing multiple and flexible scheduling options, time to collaborate, and a higher percent of the student's day spent in math and English. Under the third category of culture and community, the teams identified 3 characteristics that could be reflected in an effective middle school schedule. Every student's academic and personal development is guided by an adult advocate. Comprehensive guidance and support services meet the needs of young adolescents. Health and wellness are supported in curricula, school-wide programs, and related policies. To their earlier ideas, they added time for advisory, guidance, physical education, including health, and management of transition times. In addition to asking principals and teachers to consider the tenets of middle school philosophy, Mr. Simpkins also shared the findings of the secondary school scheduling study presented to the board in its January work session. At the end of the day, the teachers and administrators created this set of principles to guide the development of their middle school schedules. The guiding principles synthesize the thinking of the day and emphasize the flexible use of time and extended learning opportunities, the value of student advisory and choice, and the importance of creating an instructional day that maximizes teacher time, allows flexibility in the configuration of grade level teams, and provides time for teachers to plan together.
A school's master teaching schedule can be viewed as analogous to a vehicle's navigation system. When programmed with clear directions, it will take you to a specific destination. A great navigation system will also monitor our travel route, send course updates, warn if we leave the planned route, and send help should we encounter an emergency. The development and employment of a school's master teaching schedule should do no less. The steps in creating a school's master teaching schedule from any of the 3 models I will present tonight are many and complex. The time commitment involves various personnel at the school and division level and usually begins in earnest by late February, and final adjustments will continue into mid-August. Action steps include analysis of structural components such as block, period, hybrid, bell schedule options, lunch periods, teacher advisories, creating a program of studies for each grade level, projected enrollments, student registrations, class tallies, teacher assignments, and approximately 9 other individual steps must be completed before student individual schedules and teacher assignments can be finalized. A large volume of critical information and planning is required to effectively pre-program a schedule's navigation system. Tonight, 3 sample models each utilize a 6-hour and 40 to 45-minute instructional day, including lunch, which is not counted as part of the instructional day. The division's contractual day of 7.5 hours extends before and after each scheduling model instructional day. The first scheduling model I will share is a very familiar structure, and it's on the screen. That is the 7-period day. The 7-period day model illustrates the following. beginning with teacher advisories, which is highlighted in light red or pink, and moving left to right across the schedule to the period 7, which is the blue block on the right side of the screen. This sample model's instructional day is 6 hours and 18 minutes. The schedule contains 7 48-minute fixed time periods and 35 minutes of class changing time. The schedule structure allows for grade level teams, teacher advisories, common planning time, individual and or team planning for core subject teachers, and some, but maybe not all, non-core teachers. The yellow periods show that a student spends 4/7 or 57% of his or her school day in the core subjects of English, language arts, math, science, and social studies. The student spends 43% of their day in non-core classes or electives, including health and physical education, the fine arts, and career and technical education. The color coding represents a grade level, such as 6th grade, and repeats itself for each grade level and or groups and teams of students. The green blocks of time at the bottom of the schedule are illustrative of how a principal may find time for common teacher planning, either individual or team, and are times most commonly being used by non-core elective teachers to instruct students 6 of the 7 periods. An example would be that while all 6th grade students are assigned to health and physical education, core subject teams may be scheduled for some type of common planning time. Certainly a strength of the 7-period day model is that students meet all classes daily. The most notable limitation of the model is that student core instructional needs are limited to 57% of the instructional day. Other limitations may be noted as strengths of the other 2 scheduling models that I will share, such as lacking flexibility to meet student instructional needs, fragmentation of the student day, and balancing teacher and student class load requirements. Auburn Middle, 7th and 8th grade, Blacksburg, Shawsville, and Christiansburg, which utilizes the schedule for their 7th and 8th grade students, currently utilize most components of this schedule. I'll restate that. Auburn, 7th and 8th, Blacksburg, all 3 grade levels, Shawsville, all 3 grade levels, and Christiansburg is components. Their 7th grade predominantly uses the 7-period day. Their 8th grade would be more over into the block. They utilize the schedule model.
So you're saying there are multiple schedules in our existing middle school?
Absolutely.
As shown here.
And as an example, Shawsville Middle School, which uses the 7-period day this year, has used variations of block in past years. The schedule before you is a block master teaching schedule. The block day model illustrates the following. Beginning the day with a block class of language arts and moving this time top to bottom, the student day ends with block 4 non-core classes of HPE and other electives. In this sample model, teacher advisory time is placed around the school's lunch period and is highlighted again in the light red or pink.
What is that?
Teacher advisory could be placed at various slots within the scheduling structure. It's nothing magic about where you put it. It's where you choose to put it based upon the needs of your building. Beginning with block 1, language arts, this sample instructional day is 6 hours and 15 minutes. The schedule contains 4 90-minute blocks of time which may be subdivided to meet specific instructional needs and reduces student class changing time to only 15 minutes. As in the previous 7-period day schedule, the block schedule structure also allows for grade level teams, teacher advisories, common planning time, and individual and/or team planning for core subject teachers and some, again, but maybe not all, non-core teachers. The yellow blocks show that a student in this model spends 3/4 or 75% of his or her school day in the core subjects of English, language arts, math, science, social studies, versus the 57% of time allowed by a 7-period fixed time schedule. The students spend 25% of their day in non-core classes, again, electives such as HPE, the fine arts, and career and technical education. As with the 7-period teaching period model, the color coding represents a grade level, such as 6th grade, and repeats itself for each grade level and/or groups of teams and students. Obviously, it repeats based upon the number of students in a school. The green block of time at the bottom of the schedule is illustrative again of how a principal may find time for common teacher planning, either, again, individual or team, and are times most commonly being used by non-core elective teachers to instruct students 3 of the 4 blocks. And again, the example would be what I've provided in the previous schedule. Usually students are assigned to health and physical education and non-core subject teachers. To avoid redundancy, I will share strengths of the block schedule model, noting them in my summation of the hybrid flexible model, in that the 2 models share many similarities. A concern of the block model is the longer length of the instructional blocks and the challenge this provides in accommodating student attention spans. The need for a varied range of teacher instructional strategies and pacing of the course curriculum must also be addressed. The fixed time nature of the schedule may also limit targeted interventions. Christiansburg Middle School currently uses a block model, again, for their 6th and 8th grade students. The hybrid flexible day model illustrates the following. Again, beginning the day with a year-long course and moving top to bottom. The student day ends with a year-long course, which could be a non-elective or HPE class. In this sample model, teacher advisory time is also placed around the school's lunch period and is highlighted again in light red or pink. Again, teacher advisory may be placed at various slots within the scheduling structure. Beginning with a year-long course, this sample hybrid flexible schedule's instructional day is 6 hours and 20 minutes. The schedule contains 2 90-minute blocks of time, which can be either year-long or semester. 3 60-minute year-long periods, which may be further subdivided to meet specific instructional needs, and the schedule requires 20 minutes of student class changing time. As in the previous 7-period day schedules, the hybrid block schedule also allows for grade level teams, teacher advisories, common planning time, individual and/or team planning for core subject teachers, and some, again, but maybe not all, non-core teachers. The yellow shading shows that a student spends 3/4 of his or her school day in the core subjects, again, English, language arts, math, science, and social studies, the same as the block schedule model, versus the 57% of time allowed by a 7-period fixed time schedule. Again, the student spends 25% of the time in non-core classes that I have described before. As with the 7-period and block scheduling models, the color coding represents a grade level, such as 7th grade, and repeats itself again for each grade level and/or groups and teams of students within the addition, with the addition of any necessary student interventions. Again, the school decides that. The green block of time near the bottom of the schedule, again, is illustrative of how a principal can find the common teacher planning, and again, either individual or team, and are times most commonly being used by non-core elective teachers, again, to instruct the equivalent of 3 of the 4 blocks. Again, an example would be what I've said previously. Those teachers, again, may be health and physical education, and/or core subject teachers may be scheduled again during this time for some type of common planning. Strengths of this type of scheduling, the hybrid flexible day model, it uses time to meet data-driven student instructional needs. It allows the students an opportunity to spend 75% of the core of their day in core subjects. It provides extended learning time. It balances the workload of students by requiring fewer subjects and teachers daily. The reverse of that is it can balance the workload of teachers by seeing fewer students daily. It allows multiple class meetings formats, such as you can have a daily year-long course, you can have an every other day year-long course, which is commonly called AB, or you can have a daily class which meets semester, first semester, second semester. It has a lot of flexibility in it. It provides less fragmentation of the student day with less student non-instructional time and fewer transitions and supervisory issues. In other words, students are out in the hall less and in classrooms more. It affords students opportunities to develop relationships and a sense of belonging by creating small group, caring learning environments. It provides flexibility for identified students to receive what we would call double dosing in English and mathematics. Some students who are behind grade level need double dosing. As noted with the block schedule, a concern of the model is the longer length of the instructional time and the challenge this provides in accommodating some student attention spans. The need for a varied range of teacher instructional strategies and pacing of the course curriculum must also be addressed. The ability to offer variety in the length of the instructional periods and/or blocks minimizes some of the concerns. Other rationale supporting hybrid flexible scheduling models provided by school divisions employing the model include it allows and encourages teaching in-depth and higher level thinking skills. It expands student choices in the face of increased graduation requirements and a desire to participate in more college and career level offerings later in their school career. It permits more or less. Again, it allows you to have more or less time for students to attain high levels of mastery on state accountability tests. One size doesn't fit all. It improves school management. It may reduce stress for both students and teachers, yet still offer a broad and rigorous curriculum. I would personally add the footnote, reducing stress for students also reduces stress for parents. Christiansburg Middle School has incorporated some elements of the hybrid flexible scheduling model into 6th grade and providing high school electives, again, such as algebra, geometry, and Spanish for their 8th grade students, as well as providing double dosing of English and reading for some of their targeted students. Auburn Middle also employs components of the model for their 6th grade. I strongly support the use of hybrid flexible scheduling models in our middle schools, which incorporate strong research-based principles such as those articulated earlier by Ms. Borelski. Such a scheduling framework provides each school with the necessary flexibility to meet the very diverse needs of their student population while ensuring comparable educational programming for all students in Montgomery County. Personally, I vividly recall the many challenges we faced moving from a traditional scheduling model at Shawsville High Middle School and Christiansburg High School in the mid-90s. There were 288 high schools in the Commonwealth and only 28 at that time, which was 10%, were utilizing a 4x4 scheduling model. Changing to longer instructional periods with fewer class changes for students and teachers was difficult, brought about conflict, as well as not having everyone agree with all the elements of a new schedule. Successful change required time, lots of hard work, and a team approach. Today, more than 245 of 311, or 80% of high schools utilize some form of block scheduling, which has benefited thousands of students across the Commonwealth. And the Association of Middle-Level Education's guiding principles has embraced key elements of the scheduling concept with extended learning periods for middle schools. Likewise, changing from a junior high school model to a middle school structure in the early 90s was challenging, but has also improved learning opportunities for many students. The scheduling model change we address tonight of expanding instructional time in core subjects could be viewed as a small course correction. We can find common agreement in that we already have done the heavy lifting of creating smaller learning communities, teacher teams, student advisories, opportunities for student exploration, common teacher planning time, and strong guidance and counseling programs in our middle schools. The change process has definitely afforded our division the opportunity to create successful schools for young adolescents. We seek even greater successes as we move forward with changes to our scheduling models. We're confident that a new scheduling model that maximizes teacher instructional time will result in personnel savings. Furthermore, we believe that middle school programming efficiency and program effectiveness are not mutually exclusive. To the contrary, we believe providing increased instructional time and scheduling flexibility while honoring the sound philosophical principles enumerated in the This We Believe documents will indeed provide a pathway of success for our middle school students. School personnel have begun initial work of scheduling students for school year 2013-14. Collaboratively moving forward in a timely manner will be critical to the success of any change in scheduling models. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
And we will provide the board with a full copy of the talking points from this evening's presentation as well. And we'll post them.
Just so the audience can understand this, and maybe even some of the board members, what is the model the middle schools and the high schools are using now?
Okay, I shared those basically as I went through the presentation,
I'd like
but I'll restate them.
Thank you.
I'll restate them. At Auburn Middle School, they're using some block with their 6th grade, and they're using a 7 period for their other grade levels, 7th and 8th.
So that's teaming?
All of these incorporate teaming. Teaming's not excluded in anything that I shared with you tonight or that we have ever discussed. We all strongly support teaming. Okay,
Let me redefine that.
Right,
I'm looking at the teaming that happens at Blacksburg.
right.
Is that the same teaming that you're talking about over with 7th and 8th at Auburn?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Auburn, Blacksburg Middle uses a 7-period day scheduling model. Christiansburg Middle uses a form of block in their 6th grade. They use 7-period in the 7th grade, and they use a hybrid model in their 8th grade.
Who was that again? I'm sorry.
That was Christiansburg. Shawsville, this year, they are utilizing a 7-period day. Again, the size of any school certainly puts limitations and restrictions on the exact amount you can do, but they are using teaming, yes.
You said this year. Is that a change from last year, the year before?
Shawsville Middle School in the past, they have used some variations of a hybrid block along with their 7-period day. The high schools within the division is you have 2 using a 4x4 block scheduling model. Again, I think we would say in most of both of those high schools, we use some variation. That's Auburn and Christiansburg and Eastern Montgomery. And many of those schools have made adjustments in their 4x4 scheduling models, and they have made adjustments in their schedules, such as an AB day for some of their courses. Normally that would be their AP courses. Blacksburg High School and Auburn High School currently use a 7-period day model. As you're very much aware, Blacksburg High School is studying other models currently with their faculty and staff, and are looking forward to moving away from strictly a 7-period day model.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Board members, questions for Mr. Simpkins?
When you have I have a lot of questions. When you're doing block schedule and you're teaching language, do they take language all year long in a block schedule?
If you're looking at a high school, as an example, 4x4 block schedule, all students would not take it all year long. As I mentioned earlier, we really utilize a 4x4 block scheduling model, but as an example, you'll find variations of that at Christiansburg High School or Eastern Montgomery. I'll give you the 2 extremes of that variation. You'll find some of their advanced placement classes, which have tests that are occurring in the spring. Those schools have incorporated the principle of AB days. In other words, they'll have English one day and they may have AP history another day. So therefore they'll be taking English all year long, but they'll be taking it every other day.
Well, yeah, I can understand that.
Okay.
But it's not just half of the year in one block, then moving to not having English the next half of the year.
Well,
It can be.
Yes,
It can be.
Yes.
It
Yes.
can
But with
be
a-
differentiated based on the needs of the individual student.
But block scheduling, as I've understood it, is that you take one course first half of the year, another course the second half of the year. Is that right or wrong?
That is the general tenet
Yeah.
of a 4x4 block. There are multiple variations of block scheduling. In other words, an AB block schedule would not be. You would take 4 classes one day, and you'd take a different 4 classes the next day, and you would take those classes every other day for the entire school year.
And a school could choose to do that.
Absolutely, as I said before, and you can have variations which become hybrid schedules, is
Right.
what you do. You really try to look at what the needs of your building and your students are, and you try to develop a schedule that meets those needs.
Now, you've said with this study that school-based and division leaders were involved.
Correct.
Were there teachers involved? When you say school-based, who is that referring to?
What I was referring to in that statement is, as Ms. Borelski said last week, we involved teacher leaders from each of the 4 middle schools as well as the principals. We had previously talked with principals, curriculum supervisors, and in turn, some of our principals had talked with their staff. Again,
And
the purpose of that was to determine if there were efficiencies that could be found in the scheduling models.
And how long have you been doing the study?
We started parts of the study early in the year. As an
Early.
example, we have had to take every single schedule that we have and look into every period that's offered in each of our schools that each of our teachers have, and basically the student enrollments within those classes.
So the teachers were just involved this very last meeting?
Correct, because we were doing an analysis of the schedule
Right.
to see. the efficiency
I was a
center.
little concerned about
Can
that.
I ask one question there? How
Sure.
many teachers were involved in that?
What, the initial part of the
No.
efficiency?
Like last week, how many teachers?
We had
did
a
you have?
lead teacher from each of our schools that came
So,
in.
4 teachers.
Correct. That's correct. And we actually had a teacher from science, from language arts, from mathematics, and from career and technical education. I think that was the breakdown.
And the 4 principals.
Absolutely, the 4 principals, right.
It was a small group.
Who decided on the models that we're currently using? Do you know who decided on the models we're currently using?
Well, some of the models, you know, as an example, I shared the first one with you, the 7-day period model. Quite frankly, that's been in use ever since I went to school.
Right.
Some of
That's
those started with a 6-period model. That's where 5/6 of the instructional day actually originated from. And what's driven most of those changes usually has been increased graduation requirements. In other words, the needs that we have to provide students more options. And also, graduation requirements have increased over the years. Many years ago, it used to be 16 credits was all you needed to graduate.
So
That's increased almost every year.
graduation requirements have moved some schools to the block schedule?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think
Oh,
most
okay.
schools that's moved to various scheduling models have done that through an analysis of what their students need.
There's been a lot of school-based decision-making about what the individual school schedule looks like, which is why you have blocks and you have 7 periods and you have hybrids. And we actually have what you could technically call an 8-period at, Blacksburg High, because their lunch is a freestanding period.
So historically, it's been the local
It's
school kind
been
of making those.
school-based, but with some guidance from the division.
Another question, on page 6, how were these grades chosen? We chose, grade 6 for math, grade 7 for history, grade 7 for reading, grade 8 for science. Is there a way to see all of that data for all the grades?
Absolutely, we have that for you. Again, we actually compared all of the SOL tests that were given
Right.
at each grade level. Again, because of time constraints, et
Right.
cetera, we did not put all of those on the presentation, but we can provide all of those to you,
But the
absolutely.
pattern was very similar regardless of the subject area. We just didn't want to go through 12 slides that looked almost identical.
But I'd
we
like
can
to-
give-
I mean, yeah,
We
that-
can give
I'd like
you
that.
the data for all of the score analysis that was done.
Right.
So since we're on that slide, what question are we trying to answer here with this slide? I see how we're doing it from grade level and, subject, but, okay. We seem to be doing well against some of our division, counterparts, doing well against the state average. But I guess what I'm trying to do is understand, what does this answer for me?
I think what it answers for you was the fact that we were trying to look at scheduling models and see if there was any pattern in efficiency from a standpoint of how students performed in SOLs with one model versus another model is what we were trying to look at.
And we also looked
But-
at whether the investment of resources by Montgomery County is actually showing a significant return on student achievement, because you're investing quite a bit more than most counties do or school divisions do in the number of teachers that you're allocating to your middle school program.
That was going to be my question for those different school divisions on that bar graph. How much money do those school systems spend per child when you compare their scores?
And I guess the other thing is, you just described that.
Go
Excuse
into,
me?
those, were you finished? 'Cause did you want them to provide that? for us?
Well, I can find that on the website, I assume, where this data was given, but I wonder if there's, that would be interesting to see with the scores and the amount of money spent on each child.
Would that be possible?
I wrote it down, per student expenditure.
I'm not sure that would reflect what we're looking for. the scores versus the money per student
I don't think
may not,
right.
it just may not, the money may be put somewhere else, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
We don't know that.
And you also don't know that a schedule is the reason that
Exactly.
these scores are the way they are.
Right, and I guess the other thing that I just heard is that the schedule is different from grade level to grade level to grade level, and it's different from school to school to school
You're talking about within our division?
within our division.
There are similarities and there are differences, that's correct.
I'm sorry, say that.
There are similarities, as I shared with you. Most of our schools, I would say, are using a 7-period day, but certainly principals have articulated and have strong support that they need longer periods, basically for part of our students. It provides a great deal more flexibility. Like I said in my statement, sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less. But if you're getting students basically that are behind grade level, they're coming into middle school, they may be 1, 2, 3 years behind reading levels. Some of the intervention programs we are providing, such as the Scholastic reading program, the System 44, you need longer periods of time to work with those students.
If I look at this and understand the scheduling models that was on the page 4, you've got Floyd and Giles that don't even have middle school, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so, but they have grade levels that use this type of modeling.
That's
so
correct. You know,
it's-
as an example, Floyd County, they have, I think I shared with you that they have a K-7 model.
Right.
So it's going to mirror it's going to be very similar to an elementary model. In other words, they are putting longer periods of instructional time, and in Floyd County, their 8th grade students go to the high school and they have an 8-12 configuration at their high school level.
Okay, on page 9, when we talked about the 16 characteristics that we believe, were you talking about what the folks, the principals and the lead teachers, when they picked out from this list here, things that they believed were going on in the district or going on in their building, that Ms. Borelski highlighted?
I think what we were trying to summarize to you is we were trying to say that we all believe the research and we all believe the principles and characteristics that are essential to effective middle schools. What we were trying to do was to look at those principles and say, regardless of what scheduling model we may use, were we going to honor those principles? What I'm trying to say to you is, I think all of our middle schools, our teachers work hard. They work hard to incorporate the principles and characteristics that we believe are so essential to have effective programs for our middle schools. Obviously, we do it with varying schedule models that are currently in place. Again, the initial purpose of the study was to look at the efficiency of our models to see if we could have a model that may be more efficient.
So did our principals feel that the models that they were using in their schools, which sounds like it's giving them the flexibility within the grade levels to do what they need for students at those grade levels, were they saying that what they're able to do now is not efficient and it's not effective for their students, and we need to look at something different?
Again, I would answer that by saying that, all of our principals are looking at these principles as they develop their scheduling programs, and they are trying to accommodate those as much as possible. I believe that they are working very hard to see that these principles are honored as they make scheduling decisions.
Regardless of the schedule. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ms. Franklin, but I think what he's saying is, regardless of the schedule, the folks who talked felt these characteristics were important and could be honored in a middle school program, even if the teachers were teaching 5/6 of the day, or if they were on a block, or if they were on a 7-period day. There were some people who spoke to say that a block schedule or teaching 5/6 of the day could not honor these principles. But that was not the conversation that took place in among the 4 teacher leaders and the principals that day.
So there wasn't a conversation around these things here?
Yes,
There was. So the only
Right.
people had a conversation about these are the 4 lead teachers and the 4 principals, 8 people. Okay, my question then is gonna be, how is this gonna be communicated back to the peers of the masses, the hundreds that actually are in the trenches teaching and gonna be asked to support some of this stuff? I guess I'm seeing a huge gap here between the 4 and then the rest of everybody that's out there.
The principals, these principals are well-known among our teaching staff and our administrators already. I mean, this is middle school culture right here, and they are well-known. What is not known, or what appears to be felt by some people, is that the only way you can implement these 16 characteristics is through a model that has the 7 periods and the 2 planning periods and the teacher advisory during each school day. That's been part of what we've heard as this subject's been discussed. And the conversation that day, although it was a very small group of people, was these 16 characteristics can be honored in multiple kinds of scheduling models. That was the conversation.
Right. And I understand that, right? But I would like to hear what they said about the flexibility that they have right now. Right now, we have buildings that have all 3 grade levels doing something different. Is that not meeting their needs? And we need to change to something else? That's my question. Did that question come about to folks? Or did they raise that question that what I'm able to do now, I feel I can do better if we change to a different system? Or I'm okay with what we're doing now, and I feel we're meeting the needs of our children in our buildings? That's my question.
I think what the study was trying to answer is the question that you posed to us, and that was the question of whether or not we could find efficiencies in middle school scheduling. That was the impetus for the work that we have completed. We actually could take any of these schedules and we could honor the middle school principals, and we could make them work in our schools, and we currently are doing that. The question was different. The question was, can you find efficiencies in different scheduling models? That's what we're trying to present to you. We're not trying to take anything away from middle school principals that are fundamental and essential for effective schools. We're not trying to do that. We were trying to take the initial question that you posed to us, can we do business in a different manner, and can we do it and still honor principles of the middle school concept? That's what we're trying to provide to you.
And that's why we got into the business of looking at student achievement. Because quite frankly, you know, the idea was that we are investing a certain amount of resources right now in our middle schools. And can we invest at a different level in our middle schools and still honor middle school principals and still expect that we could get good student achievement results?
I think you
And
have.
so that's what you've got in front of you. You've got, yes, you can do that because you see that it's being done in other school divisions. And our achievement is, you know, acceptable, but it's not at the, you know, top of the list of schools based on either the SOL scores or based on the investment in the additional resources in the teaching staff at the middle school.
I think, you know, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But we don't know. We really don't know whether it's broken or not. And I think that's what you're trying to say, is that the 7-period schedule seems to work, but there seems to be something else that we need to try that might improve on that or make it better. Because we don't know at this point. Indication are that the superintendent has put forth this plan, and obviously there's a lot of effort and a lot of work into this, and I think as novice schedule makers up here, we're struggling with it, and I can understand that. But I personally am going to put a lot of faith in what you folks are saying. I've listened to teachers. Teachers have given me the fact that it's going to be difficult for them, but I haven't heard how it's going to be difficult for students yet. Engagement is the big answer. The second or third of the 16 characteristics. And the 7-period day is giving a certain amount of engagement, but I think when you've got a youngster sitting in front of you for 90 minutes, there's going to be a lot more engagement. And I think that is the clue and the answer to a lot of the problems is kids learn through engagement. Teachers enjoy teaching through engagement. I don't know if this helps any. The schedules themselves, when you look at them, if you've never done a schedule before, it can be complicated. I think we should put that aside and look at the 16 characteristics and the fact that you folks have put a lot of work into this. Obviously, you've researched it. And I guess my question also would be, I'm not sure why you're bringing it to us when it's already in place in some of the schools. Why isn't it just being slowly implemented into those schools? And I guess the answer would be because we need to save some money and positions.
The key change.
And the last thing I want to say before you go is, it's my understanding there might be something like 16 positions saved in this situation.
19.
19? Okay. I'm hoping that those positions don't disappear, that they reappear in the form of athletic directors, guidance counselors, so on and so forth, assistant principals that we lost along the way, and not just in dollars and cents. Because again, we're at a point where we're hurting kids, and I won't vote for anything that's going to hurt kids.
Mr. Ivers, I agree that a lot of time and effort's been put into this, but I'm a very visual, hands-on person. So for me, what's going to work is, this is a teacher's schedule now. This is what it would look like. Give me 8 different teachers. Do the same for a student. Let's see how it's going to impact the teachers. Let's see how it's going to impact the students. And I have a major concern for Blacksburg Middle School teachers. I mean, they have a lot of changes coming up this next year with moving, and I mean, my goodness, how many schools are we opening next year? Is it really a good time to consider this? There's a lot going on in this division right now. Does that make sense?
And I have to say, being a parent of children who went through block scheduling and changes that went on as it evolved to meet the needs of students, I have a child sitting 90 minutes in a classroom. It's brutal. But going to an AP, an A and B choice for a course the whole year was the only thing that got him through a couple of subjects, right? So I understand the mix of it. One of the key things that I believe is missing here, we've talked about teachers, we've talked about principals, but we haven't talked about students, especially at that age, and how they interact. Thank you, middle school teachers and principals, because it blows my mind just to walk into a middle school and see these kids just going 50 different directions, and at that age, I wouldn't want to have to deal with them. But I understand efficiency is what we're looking for. I have to agree with Mr. Ivers, if this is something that we would go to, that those positions would not just go away and as money savers, but go back into, create positions that folks understand are needed in the district. It would be a huge change. I couldn't understand what's a block schedule, as a parent, and how does this help my child? But I do believe flexibility in it makes it easier, and it just takes time to figure out how that works for your building, just like it has taken time for folks to understand, and that this grade level we do this grade level we do that, or everybody does this. be a hard decision, but I really would like to see some data as to how it affects the children at that age levels, at those age levels.
Now, coming from the other side of the spectrum, having kids come through the high school at Christiansburg, once the block schedule was established and in place, they loved it. And most students that you talk to at Christiansburg do like it better. They can get more credits. They can arrange their schedule, and students know how to do this. They can arrange their schedule to where they, can have a heavy class this semester and a heavy class the next semester, where they don't have two at the same time. But I did find it funny that, having a middle schooler as well, that's 13, I do understand, and very involved. She's a great student. She makes good grades. But, and you were sharing with us that in 6th grade, they tended to have more block-type scheduling, but in 7th grade, they tended at Christiansburg to do more periods.
Right.
And I find that a little bit kind of ironic, because 6th grade's supposed to be the real challenging year, and so they did well, and then 7th grade's not as challenging, and they go back to the periods. So I guess my point to that is, I think things can be difficult, but kids are pretty resilient too, with change.
The 19 positions, is that across the division?
Yes.
So it wouldn't be in one?
It's not in one school, no. It's divided. Of course, the two larger schools would have the greater loss in staffing positions. The two smaller schools would be lesser, but it is spread across the 4 schools.
I have several questions. When the study was first given to us, the emphasis really was on talking about the teachers having 5-6 instructional teaching model. And this presentation this evening, in the charts at the end, you call them the master teaching schedule. But to me, those look like pictures of like how a student would flow through their day. So it would be helpful to understand, for example, if a history teacher currently is teaching 4 periods of the day, then in this new 5-6 model, what are they going to teach? What is that other class going to be that they're going to teach? Are they going to teach a different grade of history? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. The bottom line, as you're looking at that and you're going, if you're using a block and you're going 3 out of 4, it basically will vary based upon the size of a building. In other words, depending on the number of teachers that's necessary, as an example, to teach in 6th grade, you may have 3 that are completely dedicated history teachers, and they may all just teach history during the day. You have some of the blocks looking at semesters where you basically have a teacher who has an English concentration and a social studies concentration, and they may be teaching subject areas in each of those. It really depends on the number of teachers, it depends on their certification, and it depends upon the sections that you have within a school. If I gave you one example, someone would stand up and say, but there's another example, and they'd be completely correct. It is. There are many examples. So what principals have to do during this next process is they basically have to look at the number of students they have to look at the classes they're asking for, they have to determine the number of sections that we're going to offer in a particular subject area, and then they have to basically look and see how many teachers that's going to require as far as putting those together. Then they have to look to see how they're going to put their teams together. You can have a 2-person team, a 3-person team, a 4-person team. You have some models that go as large as a 5-6-person team. Basically, the research says that most of the teams are much more effective if you keep them down from 2 to 4 range.
And can you address that, since that has been the biggest criticism that public comment has talked about, is the teaming? So when you look at these schedules, how do you see that still being very effective?
As far as being able to have teacher teams, I don't see any problem with having teacher teams. The question becomes when you're looking at the number of students on a particular grade level. In other words, somewhere it has to break off to be able to use all your teachers effectively. And it certainly may work in groups of 4 teacher teams, or it could go down to 3, or it could go to 2. I know Christiansburg Middle School has some 3-person teams. Blacksburg Middle School has a lot of 4-person teams. They have had 2-person teams. Absolutely. So it's a variation, and basically a principal has to work with their staff, and they have to see what the student demand is from a standpoint of course loads, and from that they have to look at all the pieces from a standpoint of the staff that they currently have, what their teaching certifications are, and again, how they assign their staff to create the teams that a school desires. That's again why I try to leave as much flexibility at the school level, because every principal wants a teacher to have the best possible schedule they can provide for them. And again, if you have good schedules for teachers, you honor teachers, you provide them appropriate planning time, etc., and also look at students and what the students' needs are, you're going to have a good school culture. It's important to have both of those elements.
Other question I have is on the chart where you talk about the elementary versus middle school planning. Does that include the early release days that are given to elementary teachers?
Again, I do not believe that would include that. I think it would be looking more at a typical week, and again, that was research data collected by the VEA and provided to us. It certainly is similar to what we see in our county minus early release days. Again, most of the time early release days you're looking at doing, major type activities versus looking at individual students, grade level students, etc.
But the reason that the school system has had those for elementary school teachers, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to allow those teachers to have the planning that secondary teachers have had more of.
Yes, normally that's grade level or vertical teaming that they're looking at from a standpoint of planning. So it may be a group, I don't want to speak for Dr. Graham, but it may be a group of 4 first grade teachers or the entire school's first grade teachers, etc. It gives them time to work together that they otherwise could not. And I'm sure there's many other things I'm not aware of. I've never been in elementary school before.
So I have a
Go ahead.
question. You mentioned that there were 92 core teachers that teach 5 periods with 2 types of planning, and 53 non-core teachers with 6 periods and 1-time planning. Is that true through the all models? Does that only apply to one model, or is that true through all the models that were applied?
I think I used the term or equivalent. The equivalent, the reason I use the term equivalent is if you got a school, as we said in some of those grade level configurations, using some form of hybrid or block schedule, 3 blocks would be the equivalent of 6. So the answer would be yes.
Okay.
I know many,
I'm sorry, just an add-on to that. It really wouldn't be yes, because you're talking 57% teaching versus 75% teaching. So how can it be yes?
His question to me, as I understood it, was, do the current 53 teachers who are non-core teachers teach 6 classes or the equivalent? And my answer to that was
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry.
And that's true in all of these models that are presented. They're going to be,
Yes.
the teaching load is different in all the models.
The teaching load, again, for the non-core teachers, which is what I thought your question was that they currently are teaching either 3 blocks and or 6 classes.
in block scheduling, can there still be team teaching?
Yes, and again, as we use the term block scheduling, again, my recommendation is hybrid scheduling, because
Is what?
hybrid, when you look at that last schedule, it wasn't all blocks.
No,
In
no,
other
I
words, it was
understand.
blocks of time, and then it was 60-minute classes. In other words, that provides a great variation from a standpoint of different needs that a school may have.
Well, as teachers were sharing with us last week, whenever it was, teaming was very important to them, and I would want to know how the teaming approach could be continued as we move possibly to a different way of doing things. I'm also agreeing with Mrs. Franklin that this coming school year would be a very difficult time to make any changes, I think, at Blacksburg Middle School. I mean, it's going to be a challenge as it is for them, and I really appreciate your thoughtfulness. Dream, I'm sorry. I'm having, no, Dream, I really appreciate that a lot, and that's another
Again,
issue.
I've shared, I'll be happy to repeat that. Teaming may occur in any of these scheduling models that we've looked at. Not only may occur, it is occurring in different schools, yes.
Of course, Blacksburg High School's looking at changing theirs, and they're moving buildings too. They're not moving across the town, but
If I could just say a couple of things, number one, unfortunately, we continue to be faced with declining resources and increased demands. And the intent of this was never to require that a school go to a block schedule.
Right.
The intent of the entire exercise was to see if there were a way to maintain high-quality instructional programs, honor teaming at the middle school, honor advisor-advisee programs at the middle school, and perhaps save resources. And so the outcome of the study that Mr. Simpkins has completed is that, yes, you can save resources, and yes, you can honor teaming and the concepts of teaming in many different ways, that not one schedule is the panacea for creating what's considered a classic middle school schedule of teams and advisor-advisee. But I would go back to something that I said last year. You got three things left. You got people, you got benefits, and you got buildings. And you've got a $3.5 million deficit. And I don't want to cut anything. I don't want to change anything for the sake of saving money, but we may find ourselves in that boat.
Oh, yeah.
And so I felt that we've been charged, and I have specifically been charged, with trying to find ways that we can do some things without having to do some very painful things. And I think that this is one way of approaching a budget reduction, if you have to make it,
Yeah.
that can be done and could be done between now and the opening of the school year. And it is one of a menu of options. And if given a choice, would I rather teach 5 of 7 periods, or would I rather teach 6 of 7 periods? I would rather teach 5 of 7 periods for any number of reasons. Team planning, parent conferences, all of those things. But keep in mind that you already have 50%, almost 50% of your employees, your teachers in middle schools, who already teach 6 out of 7 or are assigned 6 out of 7. And so this is here simply for the board's consideration, as are the other things that I brought you on a list. Increase your PTR, do away with assistant principals. There's a list of them. And I have not been able to find a way to get past people, benefits, and buildings. And so this is one way that you do a staff reduction, but you don't do it in a way that dramatically changes how you treat kids and what your instructional outcomes and your product, which is highly educated kids coming out of a grade level. And so that's why it's here, and it does have that potential. I would never force a school to go to a block schedule, never. You can do 5, 6 of a day on a 7-period day, the same way you can do 5, 6 of a day on a block schedule. And the reason I would never force a school to go to a block schedule is because you have to have teacher buy-in. Because teaching in a 90-minute instructional block is a different kind of activity.
Thank you.
But I also wrote to you in your board update this time that we've just had the school improvement reviews in our 2 high schools who had such issues with math scores last year. And some of the things that came out of it were the need to increase time on course curriculum areas, the need to reduce the number of things that happen during a school day that are the times when, things get loose and kids are moving and passing, the ability of teachers to differentiate instruction inside the classroom. And those are not things that are going to be hurt by having teachers teach 5/6 of a day. They could very well be improved by having teachers teach 5/6 of a day. So it's here, it's part of a menu of options for the board's consideration, and it's also an option even now. If a school chose to schedule in this way, there is nothing that prevents them from scheduling this way. But the request that I would have is that if you go back and look at this, that the only thing that I would ask you to direct schools is that teachers teach 5/6 of the day. And then they can design their own approach to that, just like they do now. Because I do believe in designing your school from the grassroots.
Thank you.
But sometimes you have to put some parameters on it. And in this case, this is about asking schools to design their schedule using teachers' instructional time 5/6 of the day. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, I can appreciate and I thank you all for the explaining and trying to break it down for us as much as you can. But I also appreciate the folks who have come and spoken to us about how it would affect them and their buildings. And you've given us lots of things to look at as far as if we don't get funded, these are things we're going to have to look at. And this was a big piece here, and it's been, for me as a board member, very important to hear this information now and not 2 months from now when I might have to make that decision within a short period of time. Now I have more time to think about it, ask more questions. So I do appreciate it. I do understand your frustration in listening to us, but it's part of the process. Okay.
And we'll bring you also all of Mr. Simpkins, Judy, and Carol's notes so that you can read them along with the slides as well.
And I was interested when he was talking about English and math, our students who are 1 or 2 years behind. I would like to know how any change would really help those students. Maybe not right now, but I would like to-
90 minutes. They could take 2 periods of English and have reading concentration and a language arts concentration. Same thing with math. As you know, we're struggling with math scores.
Yes.
It's very obvious. We're putting every resource I can put my hands on into mathematics instruction.
Thank you.
But some kids need more time.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like summer school. We used to call it the gift of time, and
Right.
it was. And guess where our
Yeah.
summer school is? It's in the budget cut bucket.
Exactly.
And so I don't have the gift of time in the
Yes.
summer anymore for kids, but I might find it within the school day.
Well, if
like
this
some-
could help kids who are a year or 2 behind or 3 or 4 behind, I would be very grateful.
I'd like to make the recommendation that we allow the next board meeting to be where if others would like to come speak during the public comment about this presentation, and then at that time, we make a decision on this, whether we want to do something like this or not. I don't understand why we would need to wait until see whether we need to cut positions or save this amount of money. It's a decision whether we need to do this or not.
Will we know by then what our budget's going to be?
No.
I don't know why we need to know the budget if it's something that we want to do or not. Right.
Well, part of it to me is budget.
Because this was put forward to us as a possible
Exactly.
way to save money if we had to cut, not as this is something we want to do just
Yeah.
because we want to do it.
Exactly.
But it could be a way to save money also to use it in other places that we've already cut in previous years, if we want to go forward with it.
Ms. Blackman, what are your thoughts on that?
It could be used as money to replace some of the things that you considered priorities that you've reduced from your budget from past budget cycles.
Well, that would have to be brought to us.
That's the choice of the board. But It was initially introduced because of the need to look for efficiencies.
Exactly.
But it is not a bad thing for kids, nor is it a bad thing for teachers,
Exactly.
nor is it a bad thing for our schools. And you've seen the achievement results that show that other schools who schedule in this way get good student achievement results also.
And it was a study that was recommended similar to the outsourcing, and you brought that forward to us, and we voted whether we wanted to move forward or not with it. So I kind of look at this as a similar, let's make a decision now instead of 2 months from now, talking it again, and teachers coming out every 2 weeks at night to listen to what we're going to do or not going to do.
Well, I must say, I'm glad teachers were finally brought on board in the process.
Yes.
And I would like to hear a little more from them at this point.
I think Mr. Ivers asked a question at our first meeting where this was brought up, and I think your question to Ms. Blackburn was, is this just a cost-saving measure for budget reductions, or is this something you would recommend if we did not have to make budget reductions? And please give me your answer again so that I'm not trying to guess at what you said.
Based on the study information that's been presented to you, and based on the many demands that there are on the school division, based on the SOL results of comparable divisions that do things in a different way, yes, I would advance this to you regardless of whether you had the need to cut that $1.19 million from your budget or not.
Okay, then for me to make a decision, I'm going to need to see some teacher schedules now, what they would look like, student schedule now, and what they would look like. Without that data, I could not make a decision.
What other information do board members need? I want to make sure that the superintendent.
I think it was part of maybe your notes that we're going to get, but it'd be nice underneath those to list the pros and cons for each of the different scenarios.
And I definitely wanted the comparative SOL results, not just for the grades that were given here. Please.
Do you have everything that you think, have you captured everything you think we've requested this evening? Okay. Any further discussion? Is that it? Calendar of activities. The next item is the calendar of activities. I want to make sure I clarify what we're after here, and that is that what we have done in the past is that we know that Christiansburg Elementary and Christiansburg High School are the potential next capital projects on the list. And what we have done is we've looked at the plot of land, we've looked at the infrastructure, utilities, all the regulations that are now imposed upon us, because they have changed significantly since the 1970s, to understand whether or not can we rebuild. Do we want to add on to the school? Do we have ability to add on to that? Are we landlocked? What options do we have with the current site and the current building? Does it make good sense to recapitalize it and have someone, and we've had these happen. We had this happen with Auburn. It happened in 2006, and it was very beneficial because that set the stage for us to be able to move in an efficient manner when we started building the schools here, because we already had the groundwork laid. Same thing is true for Christiansburg Elementary. It is a study to understand whether or not that current site is the appropriate site to build a school. So what we're doing is we're looking at trying to make sure that when we are ready to build, we've got we're ready. We've got the foundation, quote, laid. We don't have to spend time and effort at that time looking at, well, can we actually do it? Plus, if they come back to us, let's say that we commission a study and they come back to us in the fall of this year and say the plot of land for Christiansburg Elementary is not sufficient, and you are going to have to look for another piece of land if you want to build a school in the Christiansburg Elementary stand, then the Board of Supervisors are going to have to help us find a piece of land. So, and that could be a lengthy process. So it's trying to start the process that may occur 4 to 5 to 6 years down the road so that we are prepared when we get ready. That's my thought on the feasibility study. Will that take all $400,000? No, it will not. I think the other part of the list that we put together is to say that the balance will be used for needed maintenance improvements that are there. We have spent $2.8 million at Christiansburg High School in improvements over the past, I look at the date, but since 2006?
Some of it goes back to 2008. It's some of the performance contracting was a major piece of that investment as well.
So like all of the other schools in the district, we have spent money improving all of the schools and spent a significant amount of money improving Christiansburg High School as we've had the funds available to us. I think we've had some safety concerns expressed to us over the recent events, and I think it would be prudent that we could use some of the money to look at how we might want to modernize or at least upgrade some of the safety entrances to our buildings, and making sure that we have that set up. So it's not going to be frittered away, as I think it was stated in some sort of an editorial this past weekend. So we have a plan for it, and I think if we just give them a bulletized list of a couple of things that we're going to use the money for, and if some of those maintenance items ends up being items that need to be performed at Christiansburg, then we will do that.
So you're indicating that there's going to be a feasibility study?
No, I'm indicating that that's what we're asking the money for, is for some long-range planning to prepare for the next round of capital improvements in Christiansburg Strand, like we did in 2006 when we looked at the Auburn Strand. And we did the feasibility study out there. There was a number of things that we found out there. They said, here is some money for that. I think we need to, the other thing is that we would use that money for needed maintenance items within the school district. If we've got other maintenance items, and we've got a list, a very good list of items that need to be worked on. They may not be at Christiansburg per se, but there are a number. We just heard that we've got some boilers that if the boiler was to die tonight, you may not have school tomorrow in that school because you can't heat the school. So we may want to look at certain critical areas such as with our boilers. We heard that at our last meeting. So I think, I'm very appreciative of what the Board of Supervisors want to do. I'm very appreciative of them wanting to give us this money to be able to do needed maintenance items. But I also think we've got some other things we need to focus on. And I'm just saying that we just direct the superintendent to put more of a bulletized list together, and I think once they see that the Board of Supervisors will have a better understanding and be willing to release the funds to us so we can begin to work on it.
I'm still not getting an answer, that maybe I'm not asking the right question. There's going to be a list of items that need to be...
We already have a list of items, or our list.
Right. So what's the feasibility study? What's that all about?
I have actually in my hands the one that was done in 1994 for the Christiansburg Strand. This is a feasibility study.
Right.
And basically it looks at any number of things. It looks at the ability of the property to house modified campus buildings. It looks at things like, does the road need to be widened? It looks at, does the water and sewer system that's currently available on the property, will it support additional water and sewer demands? It looks at, is there enough square footage to add a freestanding addition? It looks at what do the ed specs or the educational specifications of your buildings now look like versus what did the educational specifications look like then. For example, your classrooms when Christiansburg High School was built were probably at least 200 square feet smaller than the ones that you're building now on average. So that's what a feasibility study does.
And we,
This is the seat.
and we can't do that internally?
No, we have We do not have certified engineers on our staff. We do not have a staff engineer. We have a director of facilities, Mr. Dan Baronato. He's an architect. We do have two folks who are, one of them has an engineering degree, but he's not a, whatever it is you call one who does a study and certifies it and, you know, that kind of thing. So they have degrees, but we do not have a staff engineer who's fully devoted to planning and that kind of thing.
What year did you say that?
It's 1994, and I would certainly hate to make a decision about a school based on 1994 data.
Right, but,
And when we did Auburn in 2006, it cost $20,000. So I would say if you budgeted $50,000 for a feasibility study for the Christiansburg strand, you would be in the ballpark as far as this goes. But the board told me to ask for the money and indicate that at least something that you would want to do would be the feasibility study on the Christiansburg property. In my conversation with Mr. Meadows, he indicated that the supervisors desire that the money be spent on actual projects rather than a study with a specific interest in improvements at CHS. But the other thing you have to weigh about CHS is you've got a list there that has probably $5 million worth of stuff on it that we would want to do at Christiansburg High School without a feasibility study. $400,000 is a cosmetic brush.
Yes.
And the items, many of the items that are on the list are not what I would consider safety or security measures. They're items that I would consider long-term maintenance projects, that if you had a flow of funds, you would have routine maintenance scheduled to replace auditorium seats, upgrade lockers, replace sidewalks. We've replaced sidewalks at Christiansburg High School. We replaced all the front sidewalks. It had quite a little price tag on it. We've done an ADA project there recently that included upgrading all the bathrooms. I've got a list of $2.5 million worth of stuff. We did $400,000 worth of work there, not this past summer, but summer before last, based on some of the requirements by the fire marshal to undo the open plan reconfiguration that had been done at several of our schools. So the question is, you know, do you want to take $400,000 and do isolated repair work at Christiansburg or Bellevue or Harding, or do you want to have a systemic approach to, if I had $400,000, how would it best serve the needs of the school division? And that's the question to me. And that's part of what your capital workshop on the 28th might give you additional guidance with. So I'll write whatever letter you'd like for me to write. You just need to tell me what you want me to write in.
right, which was the plan and which was communicated when we had our joint meeting with the supervisors about capital projects as to what the process was going to be. And then all of a sudden, now, here, do this and do it right here because that's what we say. And that's not how we're supposed to operate. And I agree with the superintendent, especially in the Christiansburg strand, with the needs at the primary and elementary, and we have Fallen Branch that's overcrowded, and Bellevue that's old and filling up quick. We need to be looking at what's going on and what we're going to do instead of throwing money and then come back and say, oh, well, now we're going to do this and we got all this brand new stuff, and we're going to do something totally different.
Some of the conversation, I did listen to the video and, you know, to the tape, you know, some of the conversation is, you know, the supervisors don't see themselves being able, we understand the debt situation, all of us understand that. The supervisors don't see themselves in a position to be able to do any major borrowing for a period of time.
Absolutely.
And so the other part of the discussion was, so are you going to wait and not do anything until you're able to do big projects? So it's a double-edged sword. You know, if you've got $400,000 or $4 million, You want to invest it, wisely to improve the quality of the facilities that you have.
My
But
question is
all
when,
the facilities.
all the facilities. Have you talked with Craig about when we might have a joint meeting again?
That's on your agenda for this evening under new business. It was in your board update.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't answer the problem. The problem is that the supervisors have indicated that they don't want any of the $400,000 used as a study. Am I correct?
No, not necessarily, no. I
Okay.
think what they want is they want a breakdown
see that.
of how, a macro breakdown of how it's going to be.
Where is
So
it
she
right
would
here?
respond to the
About a joint
request by
meeting?
saying feasibility, gives some explanation, estimated cost 50,000. Maintenance needs throughout the district, here's a list, these, and the balance of it would be used for this. The balance, they're just looking for a
think we
breakdown
need to talk with
in a way to make sure that we've kind of looked at it and said, okay, here's how the 400,000 is going to be broken out. And, I rely on the superintendent who has the data and information to be able to say, here's the $50,000 for a feasibility study for the Christiansburg stand to talk about exactly what Ms. Franklin said. You've got overcrowded, everything.
Well, but I think this is a really good way. I mean, when we meet with them, we can discuss it. We're talking here, but I'd really like to be able to have a good give and take and sharing with them.
I think if we go back, we can get the letter to them. They will be more than happy to go ahead and give us the money so we can start to move forward.
Well,
And-
I can guarantee you, Mr. Ivers, if we, in our wisdom, come up with, we need a new elementary school or we need a new high school, and we didn't have any kind of documentation to back that up, they would be saying, where's it at?
Of course.
Been there, done that.
One of the things that came up when we, had the last joint meeting was, the idea of looking at building up instead of building flat on the ground. That's what we've done at
Yes.
both the new Blacksburg High School and the new Auburn, and we'll be doing at the new Auburn Middle School. But those are the kind of things that you do look at
Right.
feasibility regarding.
Right.
We talked, at one point it was mentioned, taking the cars off the ground, putting the cars up on top of the buildings, parking garage concept.
Sure.
Um,
Well,
or
I
those
just,
kind of things.
I just think
That's the kind of thing you get out of a feasibility study.
Okay, do you have an answer? Do you think you have kind of an answer?
The answer I have is to resubmit a letter to the,
Yeah.
Mr. Meadows asking for the allocation of the $400,000, $50,000 of which may be used for a feasibility study on the Christiansburg Strand schools, the remaining $350,000 to various projects across the school division.
Maintenance
Various
project
maintenance
across?
projects across the school division, because I have not heard you say that you want me to designate $350,000 worth of projects at Christiansburg High.
No.
Are they wanting to know specific projects for that 350?
Well,
I think they would like to know.
Yeah, I think they probably, do we attach the priority list that we've created to that?
Right, for what? For them to pick what they want?
Yeah,
Just like they did this time? That's not how we work.
It's not the process in this Commonwealth, and I think that's why it's good to have a meeting and have some discussion and,
And this started in
Move on.
November.
I
move
think we
on.
did that already.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have, and I think if we do the letter as you suggest, and we'll submit it to them, and we can work it out, and we'll report back.
That's good.
Any other items of unfinished business by school board members? I have one, and that is on the facility planning, when we have the updates, and I'm not sure if we have the second meeting. I would like an update on all of our surplus property. Both surplus property that we currently have ready to go out, and I'd like an update on the surplus property that the county has and what they're doing with it. We kind of get chastised for asking for money for our budget to fill a gap in, but we've got there's a lot of property out there in that county that can be sold to bring this debt down too.
exactly.
And we've got some governmental organizations that are kind of, I'm not sure what is going on with this property, but we need to be moving on this property. And somebody needs to be aggressively trying to get it out. I know some of the property's not very attractive, or it may be, But we do have one piece of property that is very attractive, and it just seems to be kind of being pumped back and forth, and we're kicking the can down the road.
Come on,
and,
Mr.
you know,
Jones, let's just name it for what it is.
Well,
The old
the
Blacksburg
point-
Middle School property.
The
well,
point is,
I'm,
this can be discussed, that's, I
no,
hope we
I'm
can
not
meet.
interested in discussing it
No, you-
anymore. I'm interested in getting
I
some
agree with
action
you.
on it. I'm interested in people moving on it so that we can stop being chastised for what we asked for when there's plenty of money out there to help us offset this. We've got to get people moving and getting moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
But sitting here talking about it is not really as helpful, I
Asking for
don't
an
think.
update is what I'm doing. I'm asking for an update. I want to push this and get some people off the dime. I haven't heard anything. Okay, we've got Crisis Fork out there. What are we doing to market that? How's that working? We've got Blacksburg, Old Blacksburg Middle School. We've got Elliston. We've got Shawsville that we're going to
Yeah,
be able to
I
working
agree.
on. We've got Junkin Street.
Been a
We've got
long
Blacksburg High School.
right.
There's a lot of property out
I
there that
agree.
can help this county
I
bring its debt ceiling down.
I agree.
So you're asking for a county representative to,
If
Present to
the
our board?
county representative wants to give feedback to our board, that's fine. But there's lots of ways that are out there, but no one wants to, focus on some of that. They just want to focus on people
I,
and stuff. So anyway.
I would like to hear from them myself, yeah.
no, they've been focusing on that one piece for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
And all they do is focus, and I mean focus, they just look at it and go, oh,
Any other items of unfinished business by school board members?
I'm not sure if this is unfinished or new, but you brought up reports, and, as Mr. Shannon mentioned earlier, we get the financial report, the second meeting of each month. And I'm not sure if it would be beneficial for anyone else or not, but the last 4 columns on that report, or even the same report for the same period last year, I think would be beneficial for me. Where were we at this point last year compared to where we are now?
That's not a problem. I ask for that periodically.
So either just the report from last year or add the 4 columns from last year would be helpful.
Any other items of unfinished business? Items of new business by school board members?
just like to report that I think we had a pretty successful first benefit fundraiser for the Montgomery County Education Foundation this past Saturday. Given the weather, we had a great turnout. Thanks, Ms. Blackburn, for emceeing the event and the many different schools providing entertainment. The early results show that we raised almost $4,600 that will go directly back to the schools. And our next grant cycle begins in February to start submitting applications to that. And our goal is to give out at least $5,000 this spring cycle.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations, both of you that put a lot of hard work into that. Any other items of new business? Oh, we have the date for the Board of Supervisors meeting. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it was,
There are a bunch of dates in April.
no, that's not under upcoming meeting. Just wanted to-
And
I cannot do the 17th, the 23rd, or 24th.
what are the dates that were given?
3, 4, 11, 17, 23, 24, or 25.
Of
April.
April.
Okay, so I suggest the 11th. How's that? It's right in the middle.
I think they're looking for multiple days.
Okay. Well, how about the 3rd, the 4th, and the 25th? Because I just looked at my calendar, 11th doesn't work.
I can't do the 3rd and the 4th.
I can't do
You can't do what,
I
Sarah?
spoke-
3rd and the 4th.
This is April.
I'll be with the 5th graders at GLE.
You said the 3rd or the 4th?
3, 4, 11. Sarah said she can't do 3 or 4. There's only one date that everybody has agreed to at this point. That's the
11th or
11th.
25th?
I can do the 11th.
Okay, then we won't be
The
meeting.
25th.
What about the 25th?
Who said they couldn't do the 25th? Anybody?
That's what I don't think. So we want to tentatively say the 25th?
God, that's
I can
far
offer
gone.
to the supervisors that all board members are available on the 25th. I don't know if that'll work for them, but I can offer that.
And I think we might want to, I think there is the desire by the county to just try to do some of this on a quarterly basis, if at all.
We talked about,
I think that they would like to do it more than once a year.
Amen.
Watched the video as well.
Yeah.
A couple of board members when this came up on the board supervisor side, you know, maybe at the next at that meeting, we say, okay, when can we get together again, since we're all in the room, and
Yeah.
maybe throw a couple tentative dates out.
I'd appreciate that,
3
because I
months.
thought originally that's what we were going to be trying to do.
Well,
How about
That's
if I
what we
have the
had
clerks
done. I
try to
know.
organize quarterly meetings, if that's what you want?
that
Yes.
may be,
That would be good.
that would be good. If we can have the
Historically,
clerk
we've
do it.
done it, and
The clerks can do it and send it out to us. And we
Bless
can
you.
respond. Bless you.
Thank you.
Any other items of new business? Word mic. Announcements and information. Anybody have any announcements and information?
right, I would like to again reiterate and thank especially Sarah and Connie, who worked so hard on that
Thank you.
Education Foundation fundraiser, and that gentleman who graduated from Christiansburg High School, man, he was amazing. So anybody that can go to hear him, go hear him. He's incredible. Did anyone hear or see that the General Assembly did pass a law today saying that schools are going to be graded?
Passed it at 2:30 today.
Yeah, A, B, C, D, F. And an interesting comment that I read that a young girl said is, well, if my school is graded F, does that mean I'm F? That was so painful to me, and
And it's going to cost the taxpayers $600,000 to do it, too.
I can't believe our legislators did it, and I'm very, very disappointed. I want to thank all of the parents and teachers who have gone to Richmond and talked with our legislators. It's heartwarming to know that there are people in the community who care that much. I've done it in the past. I couldn't this year, and I'm hoping we can meet very soon again with our legislators. I would really like to see that, so we can have an ongoing relationship with them. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was a great event.
Any other announcements and information? I have one. You may have seen it, but a former student of ours by the name of Ben Morris won an Olympic gold medal in Japan at the Special Olympics, representing
Wow.
the United States. And
All
if you
right.
haven't seen it, Ben is a former student, but not only that, Ben is a graduate of Blacksburg High School and also was part of our inclusion program. So I think it goes to the testament that our inclusion program does work and is successful, and it's not just based on test scores that our students are successful after they leave the school and after they leave the division. So I think it's a shout out to Ben for his success in the Special Olympics, and he and his brother, all of them are productive members of
Yeah.
of our society. And his parents, when I met with his parents before they left, they were very complimentary of his experience here at Montgomery County in the school division, and thankful that we have this program. So we
The
want-
total inclusion, yeah.
Any other announcements and information?
Well, I have one. After months of discussion with faculty, students, staff, most importantly, students and citizens, I've decided it's important for me and for my family for me to continue to serve in the capacity that I'm in. So I have decided to run for re-election.
Awesome.
So
Congratulations.
Ooh.
And thank you to your family, because we certainly know the
Yes, yes,
sacrifice that
yes.
families undergo for us to be able to perform this. Any other announcements and information?
Move we adjourn?
Got upcoming school board meetings, 19th, you see the agenda. Don't forget February the 28th, which is a special section on capital projects at 7 p.m. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you,
Thank you, members of the audience, for
thank you.
staying.